All right, ready? I'd like to call to order the City of Saugatuck City Council meeting for March 13th, 2023. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Baldwin.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Garden.
Here.
Leo.
Here.
Lewis. Muncy.
Here.
Stanton.
Councilmember Lewis is excused to attend a travel commission meeting in Petoskey. Councilmember Stanton is delivering a donut boat to its new home on Kalamazoo Lake from Arizona. Could I please have a motion to approve their excused absences?
So moved. Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Leo. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Very good. I have no comments today. I know there's a lot of interest in the work going on around short-term rentals. We do have the chair of the commission here. I would though ask folks that are interested to, if they do have public comments, to state the public comment for the item. I believe it would be, I hate to say it, but item 17 of our agenda, because it's not something that the council itself is taking up as business. It still hasn't arrived at the planning commission yet. So hopefully you'll all respect that ground rule and we'll stick to our normal agenda process. With that, I'll turn it over to the city manager for any comments.
Mr. Mayor, my manager's report is on page 8 of the packet. I do want to mention on the agenda, there is listed as number 18, a closed session. That's a holdover from our last meeting. You can get rid of that if you'd like when you adopt the agenda, or you can leave it and it won't be addressed when you get there.
Yes, I don't think we need to strike it from the agenda. There is no, unless, Jacob, do you want me to have it stricken from the agenda? Am I making a mistake by just saying we don't have any closed sessions? Okay, thank you for that. Great. It's always good to have you here. Yeah. Anything else, Ryan?
No.
Great. So we have no agenda changes. We have no guest speakers, I believe. That will take us to item 8, public comment on agenda items only. So if you do have a comment on any of the items that we will be taking up as a council today, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I have no one in the audience that wishes to comment. Jamie, do you see any raised hands on the Zoom call?
No.
I do not either. So that will close our first of 2 public comment periods of the evening. That takes us to page 3 of our packet, which is the consent agenda. This includes the regular city council meeting minutes of February 27th, 2023. This would be a roll call vote. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion Leo, second Baldwin. Any discussion on the consent agenda, page 3 of our packet? Hearing no discussion. This is a roll call vote. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner.
Yes.
Leo.
Yes.
Lewis is excused. Muncy.
Yes.
Stanton's excused.
Very good. We are on now item 10, staff reports, boards, commissions, and committees. Item A is the staff reports. They begin on page 9. We start with the city manager.
Mr. Mayor, the report's in the packet. Happy to answer your questions if you have any.
Council, any questions for the manager on his report?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Mr. Manager, good evening. Question on the AT&T. When will the council/community start to see details regarding the length of the agreement? I know it's with the attorneys. Love to start seeing some of the details around what they're going to be proposing to the city. There's a number of items, very expensive items that they're putting in their proposal. So I'd love to see what the city is going to get in return. So just when are we going to be able to start to look at that? I know it's not legally approved yet, or it's not gotten to council, but just starting to get our heads around what's exactly being proposed.
Mr. Mayor?
Please go ahead.
It's possible that you'll see that at your next workshop. I know that is the priority for AT&T and the city of Saugatuck. Begin working on that document. So as early as next workshop, More likely at the following workshop.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the manager? If not, I'll move to item A2, which is the treasurer's report. Do we have Peter on the line?
Peter has a conflict this evening.
Okay, very good. I don't know if you're in a position to answer it, but does anybody in the council have any questions on the treasurer's report?
More just a question again. Is it possible to see the bills at the workshop before the council meeting? There's a fair amount. Tonight's pretty light in terms of accounts payable, but it'd be a great opportunity to take a look at it in workshop and talk about it a little bit more. Is that possible for the treasurer to get that to us at a workshop?
Do you mind taking that up? with the treasurer?
I'll take it up with the treasurer, yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. If nothing more on A2, let's go to A3. We don't have Ryan Cummins here. He returns tomorrow, but we do have the chair of the commission here. So I would invite Steve Mans to approach the podium, and anything you'd like to share on a highlight basis, Steve. I think there's a few things folks are interested in.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Mayor said, my name is Steve Mans. I'm the Chair of the Planning Commission. And with Ryan being out, I just thought I would take a minute to kind of address what we're going to be discussing this Thursday within our packet, or within the packet that was put online last Thursday, March 9th. And I know that on Friday, we did receive a number of phone calls here to the City Hall, as well as to some of the members of council, as well as the Planning Commission, in regards to the items, because two of the items that are on there are potential moratoriums that will be considered for short-term rental applications, as well as waterfront development. And I asked Mr. Mayor today if we'd be able to kind of address the council, because we got some questions as to how that became part of the agenda. As we all know, in the press release that went out, it did clearly state that the top priority for Saugatuck City Council, as well as the Planning Commission for 2023, was to evaluate the short-term rentals as well as the waterfront development, or what we envision the waterfront to look like over the next 10 to 20 years as part of our overall plan and reviewing zoning. And then to make it consistent of like what we have done in the past, whenever the Planning Commission is asked to or decides to take a look at zoning laws, we have typically tried to put a kind of a hold, or in the legal terms, a moratorium in place. Similar like when we were doing the floating homes a couple of years ago. You put a moratorium in place, you did the study of them, and then you determined if you were going to have any type of changes to our ordinances that we would then recommend to you, City Council. So we're following a very similar type of program regarding the short-term rentals. We did announce back in January that we were going to look to form a task force that was approved by City Council, and the task force applications have come in. We closed applications that last week. I've had conversations with every one of the initial applicants in regards to trying to get the stakeholders. So that process is moving forward. I think our goal is to have Mr. Mayor announce the members of the task force by the end of March, giving us the month of April for hopefully being able to secure a contract with a third-party consultant that will help with demographics and possibly an economic study. Part of that third-party consultant group, as well as the task force, does involve evaluating where we are. And there's all kinds of different numbers as to where we are. We think we know the number of licenses, but some third parties have said there's actually more than what we have licenses. So the idea was, just like with the floating homes or something, that you need to kind of stabilize things, have a stable base while you're doing the evaluation for the short-term rentals. Similarly, if we were evaluating zoning changes for the waterfront and somebody was thinking of making a proposal for a site plan review, to the Planning Commission, we would need to kind of put it on hold until we have the opportunity to really evaluate and have the study completed. So the idea was that the task force would then meet during the summer months, give us an executive summary by September, knowing that it would take 2 to 3 months for the Planning Commission as well as council to kind of review and make decisions on if anything was going to be necessary. The at least proposed moratorium on short-term rentals that's in the packet that we will be discussing at the Planning Commission meeting on Thursday night, talks about a 9-month, which would take us through the end of the year, but it's only a hold. We are still accepting short-term rental applications. They just would not be approved at this time. If renewals were to come, assuming that the moratorium was advanced past the Planning Commission onto you and then passed by council, it would be at 9 months. So I know that Jamie and the city staff are kind of, accepting, but then putting them into, before March 9th and after March 9th, as far as the short-term rentals go. So that is kind of the rationale for what we're going to be discussing, how it came about. And again, it's very consistent with what we've done every time the planning commission, city council, all of you have the legislative authority to, pass any moratorium. What we've heard from legal and from other communities was that if we had it reviewed by planning commission first, because we are the ones that put it at the top of our agenda and we're the ones reviewing the zoning changes, if any would happen in these two incidences. So we're kind of, so it's up to us to request that council would then look at moratoriums. So that's why it's going to planning and then to the city council. Any questions?
Any questions for Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Mann. It's good to see you. How many applicants did we get?
We have 24.
24.
Just to clarify, that's for the short-term rental.
Yes,
task
I'm sorry.
force. For the task force.
Sorry.
Sorry. I should
Yes,
clarify
yeah,
that.
that probably is good to clarify.
Yeah.
Jamie could tell you, I think we've had applicants for short-term rentals that have come in since the packet went out and the press release, which is why, the date that was kind of, being discussed, it's in the packet, is the date that you kind of release that packet so that you don't have a flood coming in of new applications while you're reviewing the potential of the moratorium.
Yeah,
And I know everyone hates the word moratoriums. I like to say on hold, but
Pause.
legally it
applause.
is moratorium.
Holly, you had a,
Yeah, Steve,
question?
I was wondering if you could just walk me through how the word moratorium came up and sort of what the process was. I think it was very surprising. It was surprising to me and to a lot of citizens in the city. So if you could just sort of give us some context of how before we form this committee, we're looking at a moratorium.
Okay. This is where I would have to kind of punt a little bit because, Ryan Cummings is the one that has all the conversations with legal. As chair, I don't have the ability. I can only relate what I was told, from his conversation that came through. But when they were discussing after city council approved for the task force, and when we set up a date that we were tentatively looking at the end of March to have the task force in place, to have a third-party consultant hired to kind of help review, that raised a flag that in the past, every time that we have, as a planning commission, been reviewing zoning laws, if it involved, again, I just kind of use the floating homes, the idea was to put a moratorium in place while you're redoing that review. And so the question then came up of should we have a moratorium on short-term rentals as well as waterfront development, because both of those are on the agenda for 2023. And then they said to make it consistent with what was done previously. And then the timing of it was, since we were shutting off the applications to the task force with the idea that we would start to discuss with the applicants or, interview basically the applicants for forming the task force, that would be the appropriate time to then send it to the planning commission for them to consider. So again, it's only been drafted for the planning commission to consider whether or not we believe that having a moratorium will be beneficial to the task force and our jobs of first trying to evaluate where are we in the city of Saugatuck regarding short-term rentals. And for the most part, it has to do with the volume, and not assuming that there's any changes that are coming down the road, but just looking and saying that if we're trying to evaluate what percentages we have, we needed to have a set base, a database. And so again, that's why it's now coming to, planning commission for our review, and then it would go from us to council.
Thank you.
sure.
Uh,
A follow-up, Russ, go ahead.
Mayor, thank you. Yes. So if you look at the planning and zoning report that came from the zoning administrator, I counted 25 individual short-term rental items on that list. And I didn't do the percentage, but it represents quite a few of the items that's being worked by the zoning administrator. And if you look at the details, a lot of it is just, and I'm sure the city clerk has experience with this too. There's a lot of legwork involved with this and contacting the fire department and following up, and people are not returning their applications. And in my mind, as I was reading through that, I was clearly thinking this is an area for opportunity for the city for better management. And that would certainly be something that I think the task force would be looking at as well with the zoning administrator. And I think back to council members Leo's question about the moratorium. I think the word moratorium is just simply a term for a pause. I mean,
It's a
gonna
pause
be little bit
because it's
nicer
only a
word.
hold, a pause.
Yeah, but I share some of the same concern is that when this came up, when it was put on the agenda for the planning commission, which I look forward to discussing on Thursday night, it's going to be a very good conversation. I agree with the logic. The way it was released was a little bit difficult, I think, for a lot of people. It surprised a number of people in the community, including fellow council members as well as the community. So there's very few things I get a lot of calls on. I got a lot of calls on that one.
Right.
So I understand the logic. You and I had a conversation on Thursday or Friday about this. So I think that's just a learning opportunity for the city to better manage that, manage expectations for people when these types of really important issues are released.
Right. And I think, we tried to get the press release out that kind
Yeah.
of gave a little more explanation to it. On Friday, yes, in hindsight, it could have come out when the packet was released, on Thursday. I know whenever you're discussing a moratorium or you're talking about it, this is a little different than, say, the waterfront development moratorium or even the floating home one that was passed a couple of years ago, only because there's a lot more activity in the area of short-term rentals and applications coming in than what we have, for the floating homes or waterfront. We usually would know about those well in advance, but to be consistent, we needed to do both with the waterfront as well as the short term. And I do agree that a lot of the things that are on Ryan's Cummins' reports are short-term rental. Jamie, I think, can tell you, that on Friday, how many new,
Well, between Friday and today, it'll be 8.
8 new, applications, that have come in, which is much higher than what we would normally have in any given week, basically driven. And that's even with the packet that we're going to be considering coming out saying, that it would be moratorium for kind of holding, pausing any approvals would be effective as of the March 9th date, but you still had submissions on the 10th as well as today, the 13th. That's at a much higher level than what you've ever had in the past. So had you talked more about the moratorium in advance, you only would have encouraged more people to try to get applications in, which if you are doing the task force to try to evaluate and think about, what is our level of short-term rentals that we have in the city and try to determine, is that an issue? Well, then you really don't want to continue to be improving more and more short-term rentals until you've had that opportunity to kind of evaluate and determine, do we have any issues or do we need to make any changes? And the one thing I will tell you, again, on Thursday as well as tonight, the whole purpose of the task force is to first evaluate what are the issues. We understand that we are a tourist town. We understand the importance of short-term rentals. I think everyone in the community understands that we need a balance. And there's no assumptions being made, by the forming of the task force or even having a moratorium put in place that it's going to lead to, any significant changes in short-term rentals. It could, but it may not. It may just be, do we need to have better enforcement of our current regulations? Do we need some additional regulations? These are all things that will be determined, but during that time period, we at least need to have a temporary hold or a pause. And thereby, again, the legal word of moratorium, it gets used.
Thanks for that. Go ahead, Gregory.
Thank you. Out of the 24 that you have so far, have they all filled the requirements that you were looking to fill in the character?
Yes, I've actually submitted to both the Ryans as well as Mayor Dean, my first round of comments from the 24. There's a few more, but 24 were the official numbers. And even, is going to as far as kind of looking at each category and trying to determine, who do we think are really the 2 or 3 that kind of would stand out that give us the ability to kind of look like everyone was asking for diversity. So that all the stakeholder groups, are covered. Looking at residents, we have both residents and non-residents, that came in. And so I feel very comfortable that we will be able to put together a group that brings in a lot of different viewpoints and be well balanced between those viewpoints.
So you found at least one person to fill all of those.
Yes.
That we
We-
talked, because remember, there was a little concern that we thought, well, maybe we can't find that person for that or.
Yeah,
this
there's a
person.
couple of categories that end up being lighter, as
Right,
we
okay.
expected. We had the largest number of applicants for the task force came into the category of residents that are short-term rental owners or
Mhm.
that were positive on short-term rental. I believe that was approximately almost 40% of the applicants. Then the next largest group was residents who have a negative or who are not short-term rentals or have been affected negatively. And it was fairly well split amongst the other groups as far as business owner, realtor, property manager. And even in those situations, it was nice on the number of the applicants that fell into those groups. We have some that are currently involved or have themselves short-term rental, and we have others that don't, but they will give that same voice. The main thing that I know that Scott is going to be looking for, or Mr. Mayor is going to be looking for, as well as myself, is open-mindedness.
Mhm.
And when I had conversations with the applicants, and basically I phoned everyone just to thank them for their interest in serving, because it really is just a volunteer position. Much like mine,
Right, right.
which literally on Wednesday and Thursday, you're making those calls. I was like, this is volunteering. But it's really what you're trying to do.
Uh-huh.
And you really want to thank them and just kind of go through what the process would be. But the one thing that I found was that everyone kind of is understanding of how important short-term rentals are to our community. And I think when the task force members do meet, I could almost pick probably 20 of those 24.
Sure.
I can envision when they start to create their list, it's going to be a lot of things that we've heard, but it's going to be a lot of personal experiences of what they think their community. So I'm happy with the way that our stakeholder groups was laid out now.
Like Councilman Russ, I also was surprised to see this in your packet. Because I hadn't seen it at a planning meeting discussed, word moratorium hadn't come up at any of the recent planning meetings. Was there a reason why it wasn't discussed with the planning commission before it was written? And
Well, I guess I seem to recall that there was a couple of times when we were talking about the task force that we had referenced the fact that we may, have to go into reviewing whether we would need a moratorium to make it consistent like it was with floating homes. Now that, again, when without going back and looking at each of the meetings, I can't recall if that was kind of in discussion,
Uh-huh.
maybe before or after, so that's one of the things that I think I do remember one time when it came up, they said, no, you can't talk about it. You have to be at it when you talk with the task force next time. So I thought it was mentioned, but it would have been like the December one, when we were just kind of discussing if we were going to move forward with recommending a task
Uh-huh.
force. And again, when we were talking about the recommendation for the task force and trying to get it approved, I know we did not discuss the idea of the need for a moratorium.
Mhm.
Primarily, again, so that we didn't have kind of a rush for applications. And that's, so that was the idea behind it.
right. And then finally, we had a little conversation before the meeting, and that was about the question that I'd heard from folks on about that they didn't feel that there was a public notice on the moratorium yet, and that it was predated for the 9th, and which you explained that, us as a board could change that date if we wanted to, right?
Yeah, because, and again, and this is for you, but for anybody else who is listening or that will be part of our meeting on Thursday night, these are both drafts that have
Okay,
been
sure.
drafted by, the Ryans and our legal counsel for us to begin the conversation and our review of, if we wanted to have a moratorium, this is what it could look like.
Yeah, I understand it's a draft.
And then, so there's an opportunity for us to kind of review it. And then if it was approved by planning, then it will come before you.
Mhm.
And both in our group as well as, of course, yours, because the city council is the one that has the legislative ability to pass it. It could be revised, from the date. However, historically, what we've seen in other communities,
Mhm.
as well as here, is when we propose a moratorium, it's usually the date that we would say that applications or any activity would then go on hold is that date. Even if it's made effective by city council passing it at a later date, the effective date would still be. if city council, let's say that it's 2 weeks from now.
Hmm.
One, we have to make an assumption that it goes through planning this week. There's nothing given. If they did, and then it went to council and it was approved, there's nothing that says that you couldn't evaluate, that date. And you could even take into consideration how many applications have you had during that time period. There's possibilities, but to be safe, we said as of March 9th, which was the date that the packet was released, that we would then put everything into the hold or put it on a pause as of that March 9th date. So again, that's something that, we will be just talking about Thursday night within our group, as well as you'll have that same opportunity, assuming that it does get passed by planning and then comes before you.
Thank you. Can I ask our attorney a question real quick? Would just about public notice, that an email, would that count as a public notice? If you send an email to folks that have subscribed to our emails for communications versus having a public notice in a newspaper, is that the same? Would it?
Jake, go ahead. Take the podium.
Thank you. So it depends on what it's a public notice for in the colloquial sense. I mean, sending out an email is providing notification. If you're talking about, is it like a public notice under OMA or the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act or something like that, there's different requirements for those notices. So an email would not satisfy the requirements, say, under the Zoning Enabling Act, because that requires published notice.
Right.
So I guess I'm not entirely sure what the scenario you're contemplating is as to an email. And I guess also at this stage, as I understand, the moratorium isn't adopted. It's a police power ordinance, so notice needs to be published after it's adopted.
Okay, thank
So
you for
if- yeah,
explaining.
if there's an email earlier, that's kind of a colloquial kind of public courtesy notice,
Mhm.
but there's no
But
statutory.
it doesn't count
notice
as a
required
public
in
notice.
advance
That's all I
before it
wanted
takes
to know.
effect.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Great. Thanks, Gregory. Anyone else for Steve? Steve, one more?
Yeah, Mayor, I would just say, Steve, you are the right man for this role at this time. I really appreciate your professionalism. I've heard some feedback from a couple of applicants that have really appreciated your personal phone call and conversation. Thank you. This is a hard service to do. And, I think the council has your back, and the planning commission, I know, has your back. So we're in this together. And I've also heard from a couple of former council members, this is why they kick the can down the road, because of this.
Exactly.
And so we're moving in the right direction. We're not going to get everything perfect. But I think we're doing this together, and I think it's going to result in something that Saugatuck can be proud of. So thank you.
Thank you, Russ. And I do think that was one of the things that, upon becoming chair last year, but upon even some of the new members in planning, we had said that one of our goals was to try to actually be a little more proactive in addressing some of the things that the community has asked us to address, more so than just doing site plan reviews or PUD reviews. And so this was an item, and I'm pleased to be able to go forward with it. I am starting to see how much time it's going to take, but I think it's necessary. And even if we come out of it at the other end with no changes other than maybe, minor ones, at least we have the ability to say that we studied it, we reviewed it, and we hopefully met the expectations of what the citizens are asking us to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. Thanks again, Steve. And, once again, just, this was one of the top issues that was identified in our survey of the community. It was certainly during the election and during the League of Women Voters Forum, one of the top topics that the community wanted addressed. And it's hard, it's a big lift, but that's what's been asked of us as elected officials and civil servants. So we're going on this journey. And once again, thank you, Steve, for the leadership on this. With that, I will go to another great public servant, Scott Herbert, Department of Public Works.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, a lot going on with planning and zoning, likewise with Public Works. This time of year, as you can imagine, springtime, construction season's coming up. My DPW report lists what more or less completed items, but there's a lot going on the back burner. A lot of it will be coming your way as we get more information. So that's really all I have to say for now. We've got road construction projects coming up. We're already getting complaints about potholes out there. So we do see them. We will be addressing them. And also like next week, brush and leaf pickup begins. So it's
Wonderful.
about to be very, very busy for us and winter just won't let us shake it. So that's all. If you have any questions about my report, happy to take them.
Anything for the superintendent of DPW?
Yes, thank you very much for being here this evening. When are we going to see a picture of this new swing set that's going out at Oval Beach? I'm super excited about that. That old one was past due.
Yeah.
So, and I know there's an anonymous donor that's paid for the installation of that. I'm excited to see it. Is there a way to maybe get a picture of it to the council, maybe our next meeting? or-
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I try to withhold the info until tasks have been completed. So last week we poured a lot of concrete, setting those posts in the ground. It was like 400 pounds of concrete per post. So we're letting that cure. And this week after the snow events pass, we'll be installing the actual swings themselves. And then once everything's put together, we get the memorial, I guess, decals put together from the donors, then we'll have pictures of it and go over the final details of that project.
Nice. Are you going to get the first swing?
Maybe, probably my wife and kids, maybe, or the donors. They're probably more deserving than I am.
Very nice. Thank you.
Anything else for Scott?
Yes. Hey, I want to thank you for always answering the phone all the time when it comes to Christmas lights or wire hanging down that I helped move into the other lane and move the barricades around. And you're always easy to reach. And I really appreciate that. You were throughout the years of doing events for Sadaba, and you still are. You always answer your phone, even if you're homesick. And I knew you were sick that one day. So, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Scott. That takes us to item 5, police reports. Anything exceptional you'd like to report, Captain? No. Any questions for the captain? I don't see any. Thank you for being here, Captain. I don't believe Mr. Moxie is here. I don't see him on the Zoom. I don't see a hand. I don't hear anybody shouting. Ryan, anything that you think we should know about that maybe John may have shared with you for the engineer report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not,
Okay.
just for the record, his report is on page 21 and 22 of your package.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that. So we have his report. He is not here, so we will move on. That takes us to 10B, boards, commissions, and committees.
Mayor,
Oops.
ask Greg online to mute his.
Oh,
Got this.
one of the two Gregs, if you could please mute your device, please. Thank you very much. Very good. Thanks, Jamie. We're at 10B1, which is fire district. I don't see Dan Fox here. I don't see anybody from the fire district on the line. If you're on the line, just please shout out. No, okay. Nothing from the fire district board. Gregory, would you like to take a B2 interurban board?
Yeah,
Anything to share there?
Sure. Met with Ryan on Friday. He stopped into the flower shop. It was a pleasure to meet your sister. And she reached out. She works with Apple in a training program and can at least give us advice or even help the interurban create an app for. So we're working with that. I hope that she got our contact information, or you gave it to her for
I did,
Phyllis.
yes.
And so that Phyllis can reach out to you.
Oh,
During-
just one, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please, go ahead.
Just for the record, the work that she would be doing would be free of cost, so there's.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I did say that.
Nothing involved with invoices.
Right. Yes, that costs you
Very
guys
kind.
anything. Right. We had a discussion at our workshop, and it started off with Oval Beach passes, and it ended up with, the idea of having an interurban shuttle back again, like we did in 2005, actually, was the last time we did it. Phyllis she sent me that we had a little red flyer that we did for it. I went between the Chain Ferry and Oval Beach. And I just asked her, for some of those different numbers. What it was like. She let me know that last year we went to the Oval, we went to Oval Beach with the I'm sorry, back in 2005. We went to Oval Beach 83 times in June. We only did it that one year, 180 times in July and 107 times in August. Through that free shuttle service. And it was mostly one rider with a few groups of 2, 3, or 4 people. And so the issue and that the thing that we came up with that we think that would be better served for the city, because of how busy it is in the summer. And just to have one shuttle, I know it sounds like a lot, but just to have one shuttle for that service, it would be hard to find a time where we could give up a shuttle. We would offer it only in maybe like a 3 or 4 hour intervals. It's not something that we could probably employ all weekend long or all day. What we suggest is having a free shuttle service and having signage at our points here at the information booth, and then maybe one in Douglas where we'd like for them to be picked up, and say free shuttle ride provided by the city of Saugatuck. Just call so-and-so. So that when our bus drivers pick you up and we know that it's from that call, from that sign, and they're picking up there, we could charge per ride rather than a general fee at certain times, whatever times that we would decide. And I think that would best serve the intentions of having a shuttle service. And so I will get with Ryan and we'll discuss other possibilities and things that we could do. We just think, and we've had folks that do call for shuttle service in the past. We think it's more effective when you have them call direct for that ride, because those buses are there between 15 and 20 minutes. And so they're already going to the beach anyway. So chances are they'll be picking up those people and taking others that they picked up to take the beach as well at other spots. So
Yeah, if you could continue the discussion, that'd be great. Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for that, Gregory. I don't see anyone from Cal Lake in the audience or online, so I believe don't hear anybody speaking on the Zoom. So that's a 3B. 4B, Lauren is on the Harbor Authority. She's been excused. I don't think we have anything there. ZBA, though, I believe we do have a representative from ZBA. I thought I saw someone.
Yeah, this is Jim Bauk. I'm the vice chairman.
Go ahead, Joe. Thanks. Didn't see
Bob,
you.
he asked me to fill in.
Yep.
We did have a meeting in March. There was one item, the Wickwood Inn. It was approved. It was a dimensional variance. The details are in Ryan Cummins' report. We have been advised that we'll have multiple items for April's meeting. And we're working with Ryan Cummins and the city attorneys to develop a training program for the month of May, I think May the 18th, from 3:30 to 6:30. And that will be open for anybody that would like to attend.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Hearing none, we'll move to the second page of our agenda. Historic District, Councilmember Lewis is out, so I don't think we have anybody from the Historic Commission that wishes to comment. I don't see any hands raised or anybody speaking up. Planning Commission, we did hear from Steve Russ as the council member on planning. Anything you'd like to share?
We meet this Thursday. I expect we'll have an audience.
Yes, I think you're right. Great. On 8, Parks and Public Works, our council member there is Helen. Helen, anything you'd like to share on PPW?
We continue to have our study groups do our fact finding and information gathering, and we will be meeting on the 28th, I believe.
Very good. Number 9, Tri-Community Non-Motorized Trail Committee. Holly, anything you'd like to share?
We had a stakeholders meeting on Friday. All 3 munis managers were there. We had C2AE engineering, Friends of the Blue Star, also Nancy Kimball from Parks and Public Works. So we just continue to get ready for the engineering phase and sort of get everyone aligned and reviewing cost percentages and just discussing details, intergovernmental agreements, et cetera.
Great.
So we're moving along.
Thank you. Anything for Holly? No. Councilmember Lewis is excused, so nothing on the Tri-Community Recycling Ad Hoc Committee, although we're keeping that there as a placeholder in the hopes that we can do some other other good things around recycling and hazardous waste collection. We have no requests for payments. Item 11, that takes us to page 23 of our packets, which is item 12A, approval of accounts payable. We have accounts payable in the amount of $279,517.80. This will be a roll call vote. Do I have a motion to approve the accounts payable?
So moved.
Motion, I'll give the motion to Gardner, the second to Muncy. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would just add that vast majority, I didn't run the percentages, are taxes, pass-through taxes. So
Good point out, Russ. Thank you for that. Anything else? If not, this is a roll call vote. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Baldwin,
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner,
yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Lewis is excused, Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton's excused.
Very good. Thank you. Takes us to 13 and 14, introduction of ordinances, public hearings, unfinished business. So 13, 14, 15, we have nothing there. Less than an hour, we're at new business. So 16A, this is the Chain Ferry Fair change request. This was briefly highlighted at the workshop last week. This will be a roll call. You can find more detail on page 28. Ryan, can I start off with you? And I notice we have Mr. Steele on the line as well. Should we need to ask him any questions?
You certainly can, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. On page 28, just going to touch on this for the benefit of the audience. Sean Steele on the call, owner operator of Saugatuck Chain Ferry, is requesting an adjustment to the fares. The contractual relationship with Mr. Steele requires that any change to the fares come in front of you. And that's what we're doing today. We did help expedite this request because Mr. Steele is trying to get that the fares into the Visitor Bureau material. So there is a need for speed on this one. The charge, as it stands now, before the change, if you all decide to change it, is $2 per person with ages 2 and under free. They are now requesting $3 for passengers 11 and older, and $1 for children 10 and under. And I think if you're under 2, that's going to be free. Yes.
Great. Thanks for setting that up. Before we have a discussion, do I have a sample motion to either approve or deny?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the change of fare from $2 per person with ages 2 and under free to $3 for passengers 11 years and older and $1 for children 10 years and under.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay, so I have a motion by Leo, seconded by Baldwin. Let's take the discussion now. Council members, any questions for Mr. Steele? Go, Gregory, you'd like to start?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so that will it still be 2 and under will be free with the change? Because that's not in the motion right now.
It's in the motion.
It's in the motion. I just.
It's a
read.
little confusing because I think, yeah, the existing fares clearly identified
Yeah,
2 and under, but the
Currently.
yeah, well, it's a good clarifying
Currently,
question. The
two.
sample motion's a little confusing.
Okay, all right. I was just curious.
No, it's a good.
So
question.
it'll still be 2 and under free.
You want to ask Sean, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Sean, do you want to address that? You're off mute now.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Sean?
Yeah, I just want to thank Mr. Steele. You know, the Chain Ferry, as was said in some of the documentation, is an incredibly important icon in the city of Saugatuck. It's been here since 1837, I think is the date. So incredibly important. Thank you, Mr. Steele, for your continued dedication to this. A couple of questions regarding, I support the fare adjustment request. I did have a question, though. The request from Mr. Steele was dated February 28th. Just wondering why we maybe didn't see this at the meeting last week. Was it in hand in time for us to discuss at the workshop?
Mr. Steele, do you remember how that went down? I know you reached out a couple times when we finally connected. I think we were just in time for the workshop.
Yes, you're correct, Ryan. I think that was the date. I printed it out and I don't think I sent it to you till after that date, which I believe was last Wednesday.
Which would have been the day of the workshop. Okay, thank you for the clarification. The other, in reading some of the information, a few things. One is that the original agreement was signed 2019. I know we extended that, right? It was a 5-year agreement. We extended it out to Do we remember
2 more years.
2026? No, 28, right? Is that correct?
Let's see here. That's, we were at 2019 to 2024, and then we
24.
took it out 2 more years to
26.
2026.
Okay, thank you very much. The other question is around the annual compensation to the city. If we could get the most recent figure from. It's a 7% annual increase, so I just wanted to make sure that we're,
Okay, we can have Peter follow up.
yeah,
with you.
thank you very much.
Great. Anything else for Ryan or Mr. Steele on this? Hearing none, I think it's time to call the question on 16A. Do we need to read that motion one more time?
No.
Nope. All right. Then let's do the roll call vote.
Baldwin,
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Lewis is excused, Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton is excused.
Very good. Motion carries. We are now at 16B, Special Event Application Request Form, the SCA Art Out Loud. This is on page 37 of your packet. I don't see anyone from the SCA on, but Ryan, is there anything you'd like to share on this one?
Mr. Mayor, just a follow-up to one of the council questions from your workshop discussion related to making sure the placement of the piano sign did not violate any ADA requirements. We did check that, and it would not be in any would not be in conflict with ADA requirements.
Great. So that takes us to the sample motion. Do I have a motion to approve or deny this for any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead.
motion
Yes.
to approve the signage request from the Saugatuck Center for the Arts to place a banner under the Saugatuck pallet sign, temporary yard signs displayed within the right of way, and an upright piano on the corner of Butler and Hoffman Streets to advertise the Art Out Loud featuring Mountain Film on tour.
I'll second that.
Motion Baldwin, second Muncy. That opens it up for discussion. I will say, just by happenstance, Gregory and I met on the way to the meeting. We were both looking at the location, and Gregory confirmed for me that based on the moving of it, there's a picture in the packet that seems to put it smack dab in front of Landshark's door. It's not. It will be kind of closer to the window. And I think, Gregory, you noted that it would be at least 6 feet, which should easily accommodate anybody that has mobility issues.
Yeah, I measured it, and a standard is 6 feet for 5 to 6 feet for mobility issues. So there's plenty of room to move around.
Very good. Any other comments or questions from council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there was a comment in the letter from SCA about if the city would choose to remove the wheels from the piano.
Mm.
And I'm just thinking that might be something we want to ask that they do, because that corner is pretty popular, and some late night festivities and so forth. I can just see that being a manner of conveyance down the street. I can see.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I
that's,
think it might be worthwhile saying, please remove the wheels so it's stationary, it doesn't get moved.
I'm seeing a lot of nods around council. Ryan, do you mind
No problem.
relaying that to the crew at the SCA? That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. The other question too is just, I anticipate that there might be some questions because this is in the public right away, though it is ADA compliant. I can see that there might be some other businesses around town that might question the validity of that. Now, this is a temporary, it's really not a sign per se, a sign in the normal sense. But I can see where there might be some conversations that might come to us from other businesses that saying, why can't I do that? So I think it's important for us to make sure that we clearly state that this is a temporary sign per the ordinance. And the sign's very specific about what it allows and doesn't allow. So I just want to make sure we're on. So when that question, maybe it won't come up, but I just anticipate it might.
Fair point. Fair point. Ryan, I think you're well positioned to, and Jamie to address those questions should they come in. Anything else on this, council? I think that we're ready then to vote on this. So it is, and once again, this is a voice vote. So all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, say no. None. Motion carries. We're at 16C, special event application request form Venetian Festival. You'll find this one on 46. It's also a voice vote.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Venetian Festival to take place from July 28th through July 30th, 2023, organized by the Rotary Club of Saugatuck Douglas contingent on approval from fire, police, and DPW after safety meeting is conducted.
I'll second
I have
that.
a motion, Leo, seconded by Muncy. Great. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor, just more of something I noticed on page 47 is probably autocorrect on the document. RCSD is Rotary Club Saugatuck Douglas, and then in the second two paragraphs, the last paragraphs, it says SDRC. So is that just it's not a different organization, is my question. Can you bring it up, clerk? Yeah, see where it says SDRC? I just want to make sure it's not it's probably just autocorrect. It's probably
That's
what's
correct.
happening.
It
So,
should be
yeah.
Rotary Club of Saugatuck Douglas. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. And that's not in the motion. So, okay, great. Anything else? Great. This is a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. We are at 16D, Mount Bald Head Engineering Proposal. This is on page 54 and a roll call item for us. Ryan, do you want to kick this one off or?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to take you straight to the motion.
Okay. very good.
Recommended motion would be to approve or deny Mount Bald Head conceptual planning proposal from Fleece and Vanderbrink in an amount not to exceed 15,000. Authorize mayor or mayor pro tem to execute subject to final staff approval.
Great. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve Mount Bald Head conceptual planning proposal from Fleiss and Vandenbrink in an amount not to exceed $15,000. Authorize mayor or mayor pro tem to execute subject to final staff approval.
Second.
Motion Leo, second Baldwin. Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would just, for those that were not at the workshop on Wednesday, there was a fair amount of discussion about this proposal, which I'm in support of. There's been a lot of information that's been collected and studies done on Mount Bald Head, and I understand that the Fleece and Vandenbrink, as well as the city manager, began to collect those because that will actually get us a further along the road in terms of what's been considered for Mount Bald Head. So just to encourage us to use any information we've collected in the past and information from citizens that have worked on this in the past to use that going forward. So there's a lot of great ideas already out there. So
Thank you for that, Councilman. Anything else from the council? Any other thoughts, comments? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Baldwin,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner.
yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Lewis is excused, Muncy,
Yes.
excused.
Very good. Motion carries. 16E, resolution 230313-A, fee schedule. This is on page 58 of our packet. This was brought to us, actually, this is our third meeting we've discussed this. This was brought to us by Ryan Cummins. Ryan, do you want to tee up anything here, or should we just go straight to the motion and discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend that you go straight to the motion and discussion.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, motion to approve resolution 230313A, a change in the city's schedule of fees.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Leo, discussion. Anyone? Discussion? This is the third meeting I think we've taken this up, so
Yeah.
it's a complicated one, but go ahead, Gregory.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the time that you took to give us all, oh, he's not even here. He took a lot of time. This is our third meeting. It was brought to a council meeting and then brought to a workshop. And I was glad that we had the time, being a new council member. I was glad that we had the time to look through his process and share with the public his process as well of how he came to the conclusion of the fees. I'd gotten lots of questions from folks in town about the high raise and why are they going up so high. With his explanation, it satisfied me to go forward and support this change. We hadn't raised these fees in about 20 years. There's been, a question about, well, maybe there was one or two fees that had been raised. I couldn't see where anything's really been touched in about 20 years. And then doing the math of what it takes for everyone to do, to get these things done, really made sense. we're still not covering, these fees still do not cover all the work that goes into permits and bringing them to all these meetings and having more meetings. That costs money. And unfortunately, things cost money. And again, these fees do not cover all of the money that it costs to do what's here. Because the taxpayers, we are using some of the tax money as well to cover those expenses. But that was a lot of the taxpayers' money we were using before for folks that wanted to build a new business or a house in town. So I appreciate Ryan's time and explaining that. And I hope that as we go forward, when things like this happen, that we always get this to a workshop so we can discuss them, especially to folks like me who are serving. I'm new to council and I'm new to serving. And I would think that Helen would appreciate that as well.
Thanks, Gregory.
Yep.
Any other council members wish to comment on this item?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. We discussed this, as we said, this is, I think, our third talk through this. There's a bit of sticker shock here for the community. I've had a few residents have reached out to me that have expressed their concern with this. The explanation is that we have not raised fees for a number of years, which does not reflect the current cost of doing business in the city of Saugatuck and in this environment. I would have preferred that we would have maybe graduated this in, but I know that's not where council is landing on this. I again realize there are people in town here who this will be a burden for some folks. It will be a financial burden for some folks. Again, as council member Muncy mentioned, the city does not put all of this on the taxpayers' backs. This is subsidized by the city taxes that we pay. It's a choice that we make to either completely subsidize it or subsidize it partially, which is what we're doing. It's just it just reflects what it costs to do business these days. And so the other question I had was, is the effective date of this going to be with the motion passing, or is there an effective date we're going to put into the fee schedule? I don't recall that being discussed.
My assumption would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, is that this would be effective immediately.
Correct. Or you could, as a council, decide a date certain.
I think we know what that entails. So I unless somebody wants to offer an amended motion, this is our third go at this. I don't see one. So any other council comments? I will just simply say I agree that it's always unfortunate when you have to raise fees, but as our due diligence showed, South Haven, the township, and Douglas all have higher fees than we had. They recently raised their fees last year or in December, and we're not in parity with them. This brings us more into parity with our neighbors, and I would hope that we as a council and future councils will be more diligent about looking at these things more regularly. Waiting 20 years to act on something leads to issues like this. So I'm hopeful that future councils will make these hard decisions more frequently, as opposed to a big decision that does create, as was said, sticker shock. So with that, if there's no further comments, I'd like to call the question. This will be a roll call vote. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner.
Yes.
Leo.
Yes.
Lewis is excused. Muncy.
Yes.
Dan is excused.
Great, motion passes. 16F, Resolution 230313-B, Fen Valley Social District on page 81. This will be a voice call, a little bit of a sweeter item on this item. Ryan, do you want to kick this off for us?
Fen Valley, who's located in the city of Saugatuck, wants to participate in your social district.
Yep.
And so that's why we have a sample motion for you. It's to approve or deny resolution 230313-B, adding Fen Valley to the city of Saugatuck Social District.
Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 230313-B, adding Fen Valley to the city of Saugatuck Social District.
Second.
Motion Muncy, second Baldwin. Any discussion on this? Going once, going twice. I'm going to close it out then. This is a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. This takes us to the final item of new business. This is the Utz Wicks Park boat slip. I am going to recuse myself from this discussion and the vote. Council member Leo, who's got the longest tenure in the council, at least consistently, has agreed to lead our discussion on this with help from the manager if need be. So I shall recuse from this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is regarding a citizen who won a boat slip lease in the lottery. But our policy and lease states that the lessee must be the owner of the boat. And the only recourse that the citizen has is to appeal to the council to change the wording in the contract. We had a discussion about this. We did learn that the Anne Marie, who won the boat slip, is leasing from her friend who also was in the lottery but does not reside in the city. And at this time, I would like to ask if I have a motion to recommend or deny the application for the permit.
Madam Councilwoman, I'd like to make a motion to deny
Thank
the
you.
application.
Do I have a second? I can second it, yes.
I'll second.
You could have.
Okay, all right. So at this point, we would just have a voice roll call.
Do you have more
Okay.
discussion after you?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry,
No worries.
pardon me. Discussion.
Thank you very much. This was a learning process for me and this situation down at Wicks Park with the boat slips. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for recusing himself. He's recusing himself because he's on the waiting list to get a slip. So thank you very much. The idea behind these slips originally was to intend them for use by registered or city residents. The situation here with this boat owner is that, and I think it's gonna be something we're probably gonna run into in the future, is that people are renting items or leasing things that they used to buy themselves. And this is a situation that this boat owner is, or rental, the slip person is found themselves in this situation. So just for explanation, that's why this is specifically written the way it is. And I was comfortable with moving forward with the approval on this, given the questions that were asked by Councilmember Lewis were very pointed, which I thought were great questions for the applicant, which she answered directly. Kind of a difficult situation. Did not want to set a precedent on this either, but I was comfortable with making a specific amendment to this agreement. So it was an exception, not a practice going forward. So I'd be curious to understand, we kind of seem to have maybe done a 180 since our meeting on Wednesday. Just kind of curious as to where everybody's coming down on this. For now.
May I?
Yeah, I'm just,
I would say that I would not recommend changing a policy. The reason that we have it is to give preference to residents. The pointed questions that were very good that were proposed by Councilmember Lewis got us to the update that the owner of the boat had not won a slip and was not a resident, and then was then leasing the boat to the resident, which in my view looks like it would open the door to workarounds on what we have as our policy. And that's why I would move to deny.
thank you.
And I have to agree with Ms. Baldwin about that as well. There's a reason why we have that law. You know, there were just a few things, and I'll say, understanding that they both filed the same day. Looking back now, I think, you know, I found out that we don't know what kind of boat, until after the lottery is drawn. Be interesting to have that in the application process when people are applying. And then also talking to Anne Marie, she also mentioned that yes, they would be spending time on the boat themselves because they are friends, which I understand. I guess if you're leasing a boat, then wouldn't the insurance and registration, wouldn't that be, instead of, it was in the owner's name is what I understand. But if you were leasing a boat, much like, leasing a house or something, well, then you would have to have the insurance under your name and registration under your name as well. So that was, those were the two things that popped up in my head. I think that I would have been comfortable making an exception if I understood that the insurance and registration were in the leasee's hand.
I would just like to say that I brought up this point at the workshop. To your point, there will be people leasing boats. That's become something that's common. However, we have plenty of marinas, and I think that that might be a better avenue for someone who's leasing a boat, because I think just sort of legally and just from the city's point of view, we have the obligation to keep our regulations clear, precise, and to give a benefit to the citizens. To Helen's point, I think it's just very important to not do a workaround or I think keep it consistent, because it's a lottery. So I think it should have the appearance of fairness.
Thank you. I appreciate the perspective. Thanks.
Are we ready to vote?
Excuse me, I have my hand raised. I'm not sure of the protocol, if I can make a statement or not. It's Anne Marie Utes.
It's up to you and the council.
I just don't know what the rules are, but I didn't know if anyone noticed my hand was raised.
Yeah, it's typically not a open session at this point, but I mean, there's only one applicant, so you could
you know what?
call on her if you'd like.
I was
I
just gonna
guess
say
it-
thank you for considering this. That's all I was gonna say.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not arguing my position. I appreciate the nature of the request. I've been honest in my responses, and I just wanted to say thank you for considering this. I can see where it's headed, and I understand that, but I just wanted to be clear that I was honest in all of my responses, and I understand you guys have a decision to make, and I appreciate you even considering it.
Thanks, Anne Marie. And we do appreciate how engaged you've been in the process. And it's definitely been a very pleasant back and forth, and you have been quite honest about everything. So
Thank you.
thank you for your participation.
I appreciate all your service, believe me.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Okay, are we good? All right, let's go ahead and have the roll call.
Baldwin,
Yes. Yes to deny.
Gardner,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Lewis is excused, Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton is excused. Motion to deny application passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Leo, for handling that last item of our new business. That takes us to item 17, public comments. This is open to anything on or off the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I will open it up to the folks that are here at City Hall. Anybody in the audience that wishes to offer comment? Seeing none, and CJ, please approach, state your name and residence.
TJ Badgerak, Saugatuck, Planning Commission member. Just want to say thanks to Steve for what he's doing, and this is definitely a hard issue. I tried to get a additional document into your meeting today, and then also to ours. The economic impact is something that should be considered maybe before we shut down a significant driver of the economy, even on hold for the moratorium. The other item is that maybe this rush to numbers, I don't think it's been enforced very well over the years. So I think that enforcement, this is at least pushing people to get into the system and be properly included. And I think that's a good thing on its own. So I'm looking forward to Thursday. Should be interesting. And I'm going to fill up my bracket and win my turn.
Thank you very much, CJ, and good luck. Anyone in the audience, anyone in the Zoom that wishes to address the council? I don't currently see any hands raised. Jamie, do you see anyone on your screen? No.
No.
One last chance, folks. Anybody there that maybe has unmuted or hasn't unmuted wants to offer a comment? I'm not hearing anything. So with that, I will close 17 public comment. We do not have closed sessions, so 18 and 19, we have nothing for 18 and 19. Page 20, I'm sorry, item 20, we have correspondence. And that takes us to 21, council comments. Russ, can I start with you?
Absolutely. We do want to call council's attention to the presentation, which was included as correspondence in the meeting from the police meeting. We had about 25 people. We had all the officers, deputies, excuse me, in attendance. The sheriff was there as well. Great meeting. I won't go through all the numbers here, but I would encourage you to read them just to familiarize yourself with some of the numbers that the deputies shared with us. I also want to compliment JP, Lieutenant JP. He did a fantastic job. He was kind of the center guy for the discussion. We should be very proud to have him be a part of our force. He did a great job speaking to the public, and everybody's very respectful. But to tell you kind of where some of the comments were coming, no surprises, beach safety, beach phones, walkie-talkies, and if you look through the slides, you'll see what they did is they chose some specific events, police events from various years to kind of highlight the services that they offer. And the one that they brought up for 2022 was unfortunately the drowning, actually was not a drowning, but someone had a medical emergency in the water, and the service that they provided and some of the issues that they encounter with communications at the beach. So that was brought up. There's a lot of different discussion around how they could solve that. Was mentioned that there is a landline which is active at the ticket booth as you enter the beach. So there's always a landline available. There's more to discuss on that. Traffic control enforcement was a very popular topic. As a matter of fact, that was actually in the slides itself. And so the sheriff department was already right in front of this in terms of some of the things that they hear. But at the meeting itself, it was how could we get more traffic enforcement? Could we put in speed bumps? Could we start a campaign, slow down, it's our town? There's a number of different things that, the city may want to consider doing. Adding more speed signs, which I think we have half a dozen, if I'm correct, currently. So I think that's an area for further discussion with the sheriff's office in terms of taking care of that issue. Again, it's a very difficult thing to solve, but a lot of interest around that. Parking, not so much about the number of parking spaces in town, but more importantly, there seems to be some parking issues that residents have noticed up on Elizabeth and Main. And I personally noticed the issues on Main. So if there's a school event going on, or if downtown parking is full, if you drive down Main Street at certain hours of the day, I mean, you literally can get one car through there. I drive a small Honda and I could just barely get through that. It was during a school event, and nothing against the school at all, but it's just, I think we have to take a look at some of these areas of town. And I think we have to think about, do we just limit parking to one side of the street? Because it was clearly a safety issue. It was, I mean, even driving through it, I was concerned. So that was brought up. The other interesting thing about parking was some of the business owners were mentioning that there's seems to be a lack of enforcement downtown for people that are parking in illegal spots. So one of the ideas that was actually brought up, which is worth, I think, talking about, is some cities have actually deputized city workers to actually write tickets for cars that are parked illegally. The police can't be everywhere all the time, and that was something that was brought up, that some communities have done that. So I think that's worth looking at as well. And then also too, is that the police they gave us a phone number that we can call. If a business owner or someone experiences an issue downtown, a direct dial number, it's not a 911 call, but it's a phone number, and it's actually in the slide deck that you can see. The other thing that was brought up was deputy coverage, especially more police on Park Street, especially during sunset. Apparently sunset, there's a rush on Park Street, and a number of the Park Street residents that were there mentioned that there's a fair amount of traffic, and the police were listening to that as well. Busy beach days, there would also appreciate more deputy coverage on that side of the river. The other thing that was brought up was regarding the statistics, and something that was actually asked by the school principal is that we'd like to see the incidents graphed by months to show seasonality, because when you look at the total number of calls or incidents a year, probably the vast majority of them occur within about a 3 or 4 month period, right? And so there was a request to see if we could begin to graph that out to show seasonality. There's also requests to separate calls by downtown versus other side of river, which is not easy for them to do, require quite a bit of work for them to do. And then last one was parade safety, which actually, interestingly enough, the manager has a note in his packet this week about conversations going on to increase parade safety. I think people are interested in seeing a little bit of a lower impact parade safety approach versus having volunteers with cars at intersections and so forth. So I know the city manager is already beginning having discussions on that. And that's a really good thing. And then there's a bunch of other small comments. Officers on bikes send a good message to the community, perhaps using bike patrols on Park Street at key times. The officers also mentioned that all deputies now have body cameras. There's also a question about fees and fines. So if you get a speeding ticket in the city of Saugatuck, that fine goes to the county. The money doesn't come directly back to the community because that money goes to pay for prosecution and court system and so forth. So there's a question about that. They also mentioned that the social district has not had a measurable impact on policing, which I know was a concern when that was initially instituted. The police have said that that is not really created much of an issue for the city. And I just, again, want to appreciate everybody that came to the meeting. It was good. I think we're going to do that again. I don't think we're going to do that. We are going to do that again because people found it to be really helpful. And so if there's any questions from council, sorry, I talked really fast. I didn't want to.
This is not the deliberative. This is not the deliberative part of the meeting. I'm sorry, Councilman. Anything
yeah,
further?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I did want to mention that during the city manager evaluation, which was in closed session, I made a statement. I'm going to make the statement again that in reflecting after the city manager's evaluation process, and in furtherance of our goal to retain and attract quality city staff, I have some thoughts and suggestions for optimization of the current process. Current city manager evaluation process, and I said this during the closed session as well. I think we're selling our manager in the community short with the current process we have in place. In my opinion, the current process does not give the manager or the council the information necessary to measure his effectiveness and performance or to help enhance his development. I found it difficult to objectively assess his performance without measurable objectives and goals. Two is reading his self-evaluation and comments from other council members. I see several items listed as opportunities for optimization. And I ask that council immediately begin discussing how best to assist him in creating action plans to address those items. Three, tools that I would like to see the city implement in collaboration with the manager. One, implement a 360 review process to obtain feedback on the manager's performance and or potential from the council and others who interact with him regularly, that is peers, direct reports, citizens, et cetera. And B is collaboratively create measurable objectives and goals. And I'd like to see council begin on that immediately. I think it's just important for our council. I think it's important for the manager, especially from a professional development standpoint, that we work with him to make sure we're focused on the right things for the city as well as the manager.
Anything else?
Thank you, Mayor.
Holly?
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Gregory?
Oh, don't forget, everybody, this Saturday, the People and Pets Parade continues, but at this time it's going to be in Douglas, and we'll have the same parade route as the Easter parade. And it's just a few streets to close off, and we'll have an event at Berry Field with hot chocolate provided by Capri Martinick of State Farm. And then we'll also have photo ops with Dougie the dog. I've been asked, who is Dougie? Well, you'll have to come and find out who Dougie is. Also, I've been talking about this, and I finally, just to have it for the record, I've been talking about it all day, but I'd like to put it on the record, and I'm going to say it right now. Happy birthday, Russ Gardner, and thank you for serving.
Thank you.
Helen?
All set. Happy birthday also, Russ.
Thank you.
I think we'd all like to wish you a happy birthday, and I will simply comment that this was a big agenda, and we went through it in about an hour and 20 minutes. So I would just like to commend all of you that are here, all of you that are on the Zoom, for participating. I mean, I get a lot of questions from people about a number of things that were on this agenda, and the fact that we all were able to listen civilly, have a civil discussion about it, and get some stuff done for the community and make a difference in our community. You're all to be commended, and you all have my thanks. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion Gardner, second Baldwin, I believe. Did I get that right? All in favor, please say yes. Yes. Meeting adjourned.